Again, I want you to know I do not believe in goodbyes. Is a famous Hasidic teaching. You never say goodbye because we're always in one long process of meeting. And this whole sentimental stuff, it doesn't work with me anyway. Because I'm not someone who believes in these emotional things that don't lead to anything larger. So I wanted to share one story with you. And then, like silent footsteps in the night, I will withdraw from the world stage.
No, you won't.
Yeah, okay, you're right. I'll probably think of something else to say. I am sorry that Moki made this whole trip about himself. I think I was wrong. Terrible. The Baal Shem Tov was the great founder of the Hasidic movement. And he was a very righteous man. And he made every Jew feel like they were special. In an age where only scholars were treated like they mattered, he would go to the farmer. And he would say to him, how's your day today? And the farmer would say, Baruch Hashem, thank God. And he'd go to the blacksmith. He'd say, how's your day today? And he'd say, Baruch Hashem, thank God. And then he'd go to the
wood chopper.
The wood chopper. And he'd say, how's your day today? And he'd say, Baruch Hashem, thank God. And the scholars would come to him and say, you're such a famous rabbi. You waste your day speaking to the simpletons. And the Baal Shem Tov said that the pleasure and joy that God gets from hearing this simple statement of belief from every person, that's the great joy I bring God. He made every person feel like they matter. He was an incredible man, and all of Hasidism, this joyous celebration of life, which is the signature of the Hasidic movement, started within about 250 years ago. One day, the Baal Shem Tov has a dream. And in this dream, he says, the man who is going, in this dream he hears, the man who is going to spend all eternity with you, the man who is going to be your study partner in the Garden of Eden in paradise after 120 years, lives in a Russian village 2 days from you. And that was the end of the dream. The Baal Shem Tov had to meet the guy that he was going to spend all eternity with. So he never traveled without his millionaires. He always went with 9 other guys. He saddled the horses. They go into this carriage, and they travel 2 days, and they knock on the door. And an enormous man answers the door. And as he answers the door, he's like slopping this gruel into his mouth. Like those big, giant platters we got tonight. He's got his head inside as if like a horse eating from a trough. He throws in a Delta meal, just for the pain of it all. And he answers the door, and he says to Baal Shem Tov, what do you want? Baal Shem Tov said, he said, I'm looking for so-and-so. He gives him the name of the man who he was told in the dream would be a study partner. And the man says, that's me, what do you want? He said, we've traveled for 2 days. We're very weary. We're very tired. Would you mind inviting us in? The man said, no, I don't like having guests. He slams the door. Baal Shem Tov knocks again. He says, please. We've traveled for 2 days. We have nowhere to go. And the man says, well, if you insist, but I'm letting you stay just a night. This man, Baal Shem Tov thought, he must be a great scholar. Maybe he's just like a hidden saint. Because he seems so vulgar, so obscene. How could it be that this man would be a study partner for all eternity in the Garden of Eden? Baal Shem Tov starts asking him simple questions about Mishnah, Talmud, the Bible. The guy doesn't know anything. He's an ignoramus. He can barely read and write. And through the night, it became absolutely clear to Baal Shem Tov that this man was an ignoramus who had no manners, who had no virtue, and Baal Shem Tov decided, you know what? This is a punishment from God. This dream must be a punishment that forever I'm going to have to share my eternity with this lowlife, with this scumbag. And the Baal Shem Tov can't sleep that night. And he's just searching his soul to discover, what did I do wrong that God would punish me forever, to be in hell, to be in purgatory, to be in Gehenna with this animal. Doesn't sleep the whole night. They wake up in the morning, all of the students, they start saddling up their horses. They barely ate anything. The guy barely gave them any food. Just before they leave, Baal Shem Tov says to them, I have to ask you a question. I had a dream that you are going to be my study partner for all eternity. The man said, that's impossible. I don't know how to read and write. Baal Shem Tov said, no, the dream was very accurate, and I saw your face and I saw your name, and I knew exactly where you lived. That's how I found you. What could you possibly have done to warrant, I'm a famous rabbi, to be with me for all eternity? The man said, nothing. Baal Shem Tov said, are you religious? He said, no, I'm not religious at all. You keep the Sabbath? No, I don't keep the Sabbath. He said, do you keep kosher? He said, no, I don't keep kosher. He said, do you keep anything? No, I keep absolutely nothing. I'll leave. Baal Hashem said, I'm begging you, please, I need to understand this riddle. Just, is there anything that you can think of? Anything. Just tell me something about you before I go. The man said, if I tell you this one thing about me, you promise to leave? Hashem said, yes, me and my students will leave. The man said, 30 years ago, the Cossacks came marauding through our village. And they strung up any Jew they could find and poured gasoline all over him and lit him up like a Christmas tree. And my father was a puny, scrawly, emaciated, anorexic Jew. And they came, and right in front of my eyes, I was a boy of 8. They tied him up, they put him against a tree, they poured gasoline all over him, and they lit him up. And no one knew that a Jew died that day because my father was so small. And that day I swore to myself that I would never stop eating. I would eat and eat and eat because those Cossacks, before they left, they said, little boy, we're going to give you a reprieve today, but we're coming back. We're going to come back for you, and we're going to kill you too. And I decided that day that I would never stop eating. So that one day when they came back for me, and they tied me up, and they poured the gasoline on me, the whole countryside would know that a Jew was proudly dying for being Jewish. And there was nothing that would stop him, that would separate him from his faith. The whole city would know that I'm prepared to die for who I am. Hashem heard the story, and he turned to the man as he left and he said, I now know why you have merited to be my study partner for all eternity. I just don't know what merit I have to be your study partner. And then he left. I don't care what you guys observe or don't observe from this trip. I'm an Orthodox rabbi. If you take away more mitzvot from this trip, God bless you. And that'll be a beautiful thing. If the women light Shabbos candles, the guys put on tefillin, and if you keep a little bit more kosher, if Shabbos becomes more meaningful to you, the Jewish festivals, a lot of you learned about what Tisha B'Av was for the first time. Some of you even fasted from Tisha B'Av for the first time. Most of you have told me you didn't even hear what it was. But that's not what matters. And it doesn't even matter whether you're going to love Israel with all your might or you're going to question it at times, reading things about in the news that are probably lies. It'd be wonderful if you stood up for Israel and proudly defended it. We hope that that's one of the great objectives that you achieved on this trip. But the only thing that really matters, the whole objective of this entire experience is, are you going to walk away prouder Jews? That's it. Are you going to be proud of who you are? Do you finally have an identity? Do you have a place to call home? Now on that Shabbos, this past Saturday, a couple of you came to me to the synagogue where I spoke about Rabbi this little 8-year-old boy who was killed in Borough Park 3 weeks ago in a horrific, brutal murder that was perpetrated by a member of his own community, another Orthodox Jew, who then dismembered him and cut up his arms and legs and put him in the freezer. That's not what stayed with me from this terrible tragedy that so rocked New York. What stayed with me was, on the security cameras, they caught the boy walking from block to block with a little backpack slung over his shoulder, simply looking for a place called home. And every block another store camera caught him. And you saw this innocent child who just was wandering, looking for a place called home. That's what moved me, not the story of the Jerusalem movie. Because we are all that boy. Every woman here is that boy, and every guy here is that boy. We all wander from place to place, looking for a place called home. That's why we go in and out of so many relationships. We're looking for a place where we feel comfortable. That's why we so instantly bonded. I saw it on the second day. I saw it 2 years ago on this trip, and I'm sure Moki and Batzion and Yaniv see it on every Birthright trip. It's an amazing thing. After 2 days, everybody bonds. 2 days. Everyone knows each other's name, and everyone bonds. Why? Because we all naturally gravitate to any place that we can call our home, even if it's for 10 days. We just want to belong. We're all looking to belong. Many of us have broken relationships with our parents.